Good morning, and welcome to this NSH keynote presentation. We're glad you came. This morning we have three distinguished panelists that will present snippets of their extensive travels and accomplishments throughout the years. First we have Lawal Badirat from Lagos, Nigeria. And she's going to speak of the challenges that she's encountered in beginning a histopath lab in Lagos and setting up an QIHC facility. Next we have Glenda Hood, who you probably all know. She's a volunteer consultant with ASCP Institute for Global Outreach, and she'll present experiences that she's encountered in teaching over in Africa. Last but not least, David Davis, who we all know too. This guy's been all over the place. Believe 40 countries. He's got 3 lined up for next year already. And he really does a smash-up job. Each speaker will be allowed 12 minutes to present. And after all the speakers have spoken, we will take questions from the floor. So first up is Glenda, and a few more words about Glenda. She is expert in teaching classroom. She had a school for histotechnology in Indiana, the university, and she is now on Tarleton University, or State University in Fort Worth, Texas. She was asked by the American Society for Clinical Pathologists to join the group outreach, and she's traveled to Africa a few times and has gone back several times since. She has served ASCP as on the board of certification for the histology examination, and she's won the Leone Award in 2010. I now welcome Glenda to the podium.
Thank you, Ken. We're all going to be challenged this morning to just speak for 10 to 12 minutes because we all have so much to say about what we've done and our travels. But we'll try to keep it down to our minimum, our maximum, so that we don't overstep each other's bounds. Let me figure out this. Okay. First slide is Dumela Bome Bo Natate. That is Sesotho from the land of Lesotho for good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bome is ladies, Bo Natate, gentlemen. And Karibu, welcome, in Swahili. One of the things that I've come to realize is that I cannot change everything in the world. But just because I can't change everything doesn't mean that I don't try to do at least the part that I can do. I was approached in 2007 initially to become a consultant for the ASCP Global Outreach. George W. Bush put forward this initiative, the PEPFAR, President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. And this was a global initiative anywhere that HIV and AIDS was rampant in the countries. It is funded through the Centers for Disease Control, and they coordinate the money. They award it to different agencies as well as different countries for the work going on there. And it was first funded in 2005 to help support quality improvements in labs so that they could diagnose HIV and AIDS more effectively. And that was just for the laboratories. And subsequently, and you can see from this slide where the HIV AIDS was most prevalent in sub-Saharan Africa and the seems like the further south you went in Africa, the worse it got. Up to 36% of the entire population in those countries that are the darkest red were infected with HIV/AIDS. And that means if we counted off 100 of us this morning, 36 of us would be infected with HIV/AIDS if we lived in those countries. Whole generations were affected and many, many children left orphaned. The ASCP's role at that point was to improve the lab procedures, mostly in hematology, chemistry, and CD4 testing, and simply for HIV/AIDS. The original countries are listed there, and now many more countries are involved. And ASCP, as well as other agencies, are doing a lot of work worldwide. After the laboratory services were improved, and the med techs were excellent at doing this, the people that the ASCP used as consultants at that time did an excellent job in the improvement, working very frequently in very remote and rural areas under extreme conditions to bring up laboratory services. And at that point, no histotechs were involved because that's not what the testing was involved. But after the laboratories were improved, then a lot of the countries where they had been sending these ASCP consultants requested help with improving their training programs. And in all other countries in the world, histology is part of the med tech training programs. And that's how I became involved. The med techs didn't have any expertise in histology, and I had served years ago on a committee with other med techs at ASCP, and that someone had remembered me and suggested that I go. So that's how I became involved. The work that I'm doing with ASCP is called pre-service, before the laboratory service actually, and it's in the training part, and we're involved in many countries, some of them listed here. It includes everything from assessing their current curriculum to designing new curriculum, helping them design new curriculum, and also teaching method improvements. And this is a more current map from 2011 showing where the PEPFAR monies are being spent. It has been refunded again under the Obama administration. And if you see the graph at the bottom, that's measuring the number of people who have been afforded, who have been given access to the antiretroviral drugs since PEPFAR funding began. And that was the initial purpose, was to get antiretroviral treatment to the people who were diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. So back to what I do, what I've helped with. I was invited, first of all, in 2007 to go on a trip, and I went, and what we were doing was pre-service curriculum development or revision. In their current methods, the lecturer, the instructor, literally stood at a podium and spoke with no AV assistance, no PowerPoints, no interactions. The students don't have any books or handouts. They literally wrote notes, and they learned simply by memorizing those notes that the instructor had spoken. So we wanted to help them improve from that teacher-centered method of teaching to a more student-centered learning. And we also work with them on laboratory exercises. They don't necessarily have teaching laboratories in their programs, so we help them with simulations and projects that they can use to teach their students how to do some of the laboratory procedures, and not just histology, but everything. The ASCP consultants, of which I'm one, will do presentations and demonstrations of different curricular plans and methods. Then the participants give their input and do what we call a teach-back activity. We teach them how to make a PowerPoint, and then they present a short PowerPoint, and we give them feedback on that. We are always partnering with these countries and these programs. We never impose, we are invited there. If they don't like something, we don't do it. We don't say, this is what you should do because it works well for us. Or we don't say in Nigeria, this worked really well in Rwanda, so you should try this. We give them lots of opportunities to select what works best for them, and then we work within their framework. And we also work within their PEPFAR funding. Different countries get different levels of funding, and that's what we work within those boundaries. We work with different levels of completion of curriculum. Some of them are in their very beginning states, and I'll be going in a couple of weeks to Sierra Leone, and it will only be the second trip for ASCP, and they're in their very beginning stages, just like Rwanda was when I first went there. Some are in the midst of revisions, and it may take 2 or 3 years to get all of this curriculum totally reworked and reintroduced into the programs. Some of them are actually revising how the courses are in their programs, changing where microbiology is taught versus where maybe a biochemistry is taught. And so we help them work through all of that. And then some are in finalization and implementation. And that was the experience that I had in July in Lesotho. They were actually beginning then to teach it in August, which was really a nice thing to see that we had come that far, they had come that far. So I was involved from 2008. My very first trip was a 2-week trip, 1 week to Rwanda, 1 week to Tanzania. Both countries were in the earlier stages, although Tanzania was a couple of steps ahead of Rwanda. And again, I was the very first histotech to accompany any of the ASCP trips there, and I was so thrilled and so scared and so totally entering the unknown, but it turned out to be an extremely wonderful experience. And the countries had said, where are your histotechs? We need help with that curriculum too. And that's when the ASCP said, oh, we have to get somebody who has expertise in that. So my trips were 2008, a 1 week in Rwanda and Tanzania in the same trip. And then in 2010, they actually sent me to Rwanda alone for a month. And I was supposed to be the advisor to the histology instructor, but as I got there, I realized there was no histology instructor available. So I did teach 2 histology courses to 2 different groups, the 3rd years and the 2nd years. And I did all that in a month. So you can imagine every night I was making new lessons to teach very compact, what normally takes many months, several months to go through. I also have gone to Nigeria, Lesotho, back to Rwanda for a 3rd time earlier this year, back to Lesotho for a 2nd time in July, and then in mid-October I'll be going to Sierra Leone, which is not in Eastern Africa, it's in Western, so this is where I have been. This is where my travels have taken me. First to Rwanda here, to Tanzania, to Nigeria, this says South Africa, but Lesotho is this tiny country totally bound by South Africa. The little orange dot there is Lesotho. And then I'll be going to Sierra Leone, which is directly on the Atlantic Ocean, so I'll see the Atlantic from the opposite side of the world. Like I said, first time was scary. I had no idea what I was going to encounter, and the travel can sometimes be grueling. 24 hours later, we arrived in Rwanda, and after a stopover in Brussels. Kigali is the capital and centrally located city in Rwanda, which is known as the country of 1,000 hills, and it's very hilly. You might have heard the Gorillas in the Mist story. That's in northwest Rwanda. And coffee and tea are their major crops. The people are very welcoming, very welcoming there and peaceful, although they have a traumatic history. Excuse me. The Kigali Health Institute is housed in what used to be a military base. They're in the city, within walking distance from the hotel where we stayed. This is an administration building, and this is the classroom. Used to be barracks, and there's no air conditioning, there's no elevator, and we met on the 4th floor every day, and it was a challenge. First of all, we walked up and down the hills to get there, and then we walked up and down the 4th floor of the school. I met Leopold, who at the time was the only trained histotech in Rwanda. There were 2 anatomic pathologists in Rwanda at the time, and they had sent Leopold to Belgium to train for 3 months, and that's how he got his training. The pathologist on the right is Dr. Veneran Bajiramana, and he and I continued to be, well, and Leopold also, we all continued to be in contact, and I've seen them on both my return trips. Rwanda was, in 1994, ravaged by intertribal genocide, and there are mass graves and memorial sites all over the country. And this is a large memorial there in the city of Kigali. 1 million people were killed in 100 days. That adds up to about 1,000 per day. And this was neighbor on neighbor. It was just absolutely horrific. In 2010, when I went back, they had just commemorated their 18th year since genocide, and this was the billboard, one of the billboards around town that was put up after that week there. This was on the left was the histology teaching laboratory at QIHC when I went in 2008, and on the right are some crates at the hospital where they hope to have a histology lab. When I went back in 2010, both of these were much improved, and the hospital laboratory is totally operational now. The teaching laboratory could be operational if they had someone to run it and teach it properly. Kigali is said to be the cleanest city in Africa, and it certainly is. Literally street sweepers, people sweeping the streets and the lawns every morning to make it beautiful and clean, and it is an absolutely gorgeous place. When I went back in 2010, these were some of the students in a classroom doing an assignment that I gave them, a very interactive kind of work that they weren't used to at all, but they adapted to very rapidly. Here are some of the third-year students on the last day of teaching. Everyone wanted a picture with me, and I have about 50 of them because each one of them has a picture of me individually with them. The young man on the left with the star is a young man named Innocent. He still emails me periodically. He has finished his coursework, is without a job at this point, but he still emails periodically. I had an email from him just last week. In fact, just this morning I had an email from a young man who was a worker at the hotel that I made friends with also that month. Tanzania borders the Indian Ocean. We left from Rwanda, which is an arrow on your left. We flew through Kenya and back into Arusha to the Mount Kilimanjaro airport, and we met with faculty from 5 different programs there in Tanzania. They all came to Arusha to meet with us for that week. And here are some of the participants. The woman on the far right is from Zanzibar, which is part of Tanzania, and she actually teaches the histopathology there. She's the one who told me that 5 students share 1 disposable blade for the 2 weeks of training in her laboratory. And it makes you think how different things are from here when you hear them say that. We would never think of using a blade that long. And this was one of my favorite pictures, people in native dress, even one similarly dressed to David this morning as a Maasai, right with a traffic jam in downtown Arusha outside our hotel. My next one was to Nigeria, where Badirat is from. She is from Lagos, which is down here on the coast, out here. I met in Abuja with faculty from Jos, the University of Jos. There was civil unrest in Jos, and we were not allowed to travel there, but they traveled to Abuja, and we met with them for a week in a hotel there. Again, some of the things that I've introduced were clay tissue models, simply that I make at home, that I use to represent tissue so that we can show them how to embed and orient them properly, and just working in small groups on the curriculum there. Another ASCP consultant, this is Linda Fell from Nebraska, who is a hematologist, and she's also working with small groups. The faculty, all of the people that we work with are highly intelligent. Most have master's degrees, some have doctorates. They're all willing to learn, they want to improve, and it's just such a wonderful experience to see that attitude with the people we work with. My next favorite country after Rwanda is Lesotho. It's a very small country. The whole country is, like I said, surrounded by South Africa, but it's also, the whole country is over a mile high. It's very mountainous with plateaus. And some of the other pictures that we're looping through showed the tops of plateaus with their crops on the tops of the plateaus. This is the most grueling flight. We fly from Atlanta to Johannesburg, and it's about a 17.5-hour flight. We overnight in Johannesburg because we've missed both of the 2 flights into Maseru for the day, and then we flew the other hour into Maseru. I've gone in November, which is the picture on the left, which was summertime there. I've gone in July, which is the picture on the right, and you notice they're all wearing coats. It actually snowed on the last day we were there in the city, and you can see from here that it was very snowy in the mountains as we took off to come back. It was the first time I've gone to Africa that I couldn't just take my summery clothes like I always do. And the last trip that I will be going on soon is to Sierra Leone, to the city of Freetown, and I'm interested to see the challenges that we meet there and the opportunities that we meet as well. Like I said before, they're just beginning. And when I tell people that I've been to these places, they say, oh, that's a very unsafe place. Yes, there are unsafe aspects of this travel, but we only go where the State Department says that we will be safe. And we take all sorts of precautions about where we travel, how we go, never alone, never outside the hotel at night if it's not recommended, and those sorts of things. So I know there's inherent dangers, but it's been worth it to me, and I know that my security is taken care of as well as it can be. My advice to people who are intrigued by this sort of thing, and I know some of you already are doing international work, and I know you find it very fulfilling. Andrea got an award last night for her to continue her work in Peru. Get yourself involved. Like I said, I had served on an ASCP committee years before, not having any idea it would lead to anything except that committee work. Don't limit yourself. When my mother, who was still alive at the time I started doing this, heard about my invitation, she said, no good news ever comes out of Africa. I don't want you to go. But she did become my best cheerleader for my trips eventually. Learn from any opportunity. Learn from the customs, learn from the foods, learn from the fabrics. Go outside your comfort zone, because that's the only way that we learn. And try new things. We are certainly adaptable people, and we can do those things. Moral to the story, we are very blessed. I'd always known that, but I had no idea just how blessed we were until I started doing these travels. And it is absolutely amazing what we take for granted here. We have reagents and supplies. We have consistent infrastructure with electricity and water and elevators and air conditioning, things that we take totally for granted. We are safe in almost all aspects of our lives, much more than other people all over the world. And we generally have excellent support for training. Maybe not what we want, maybe it's not enough, but it's still excellent support. Asante sana, that means thank you very much in Swahili. And this is a quote that I love: throw your dream into space like a kite. You do not know what it will bring back: a new life, a new friend, a new love, or a new country, or possibly all of the above. Thank you again.
Thank you, Glenda. Some of the good news out of Africa is up next. Leone began her professional career through formal training at the medical laboratory scientist with a specialty in histopathology and immunohistochemistry. She built the lab from scratch virtually with very little help, money-wise or facility-wise. She's accomplished this as she got a degree as she graduated in the year 2000, and she's been working in the lab ever since then, the University Training Hospital in Lagos. She has presented workshops before, and we're very pleased that she's here with us all the way from Africa. Please welcome Lawal.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Presenting to you immunohistochemistry in a resource-constrained setting, the Lagos University Teaching Hospital experience. I'm from Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous black nation located in West Africa with 36 states, population of about 140 million. A health structure, you have private and the public services, 90% out-of-pocket expenditure, less than 10% insurance coverage. We have 3 tiers, the primary, secondary, and the tertiary institutions. Cancer burden in Nigeria, a 5-year prevalence. For men, we have 71,683. Women, 151,634. Pathology services available since early 1960s, and the immunohistochemistry laboratory started June 2006. That's the picture of the Lagos University Teaching Hospital where I work, and that's the laboratory. That's the immunohistochemistry laboratory. Another view of it. The current status that we have in immunohistochemistry, especially in the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, it was not existing. So when I got there, I ensured that I set up the lab, which was what you saw earlier, this, and got all this available to ensure that immunohistochemistry exists in that place. Procedures conducted as part of histology diagnosis in Nigeria, hematoxylin and eosin staining technique, all tertiary institutions have that. Histochemistry for special stains, all tertiary institutions and few private. Immunohistochemistry laboratories, only 12 centers. For the fish and quiche, just 1 center, and it's even a private establishment, and the molecular pathology laboratory. For the training, the immunohistochemistry was not part of the curriculum before, but now it's been recently incorporated into the curriculum as in the partner medical schools that we have. And short courses for immunohistochemistry do exist, 2-3 days, then you have hands-on practical and on-site training by some industries. Then the infrastructure that we have presently, we do manual processing for immunohistochemistry, which is predominant in most of the centers. Yeah, some of the challenges that we face, one is the power, that's electricity. Because of that, it limits our processing, the lower capacity to handle large number of requests, then it's waste reagents, then it's time consuming, but that is what we have presently. And we just want to ensure that immunohistochemistry is being done in my center. Then the automated processing is available in one center, but they could still not use it because of electricity and water supply. So they just have the autoimmunostainer just there, but they cannot use it. Then it's very expensive. For some centers, they cannot afford it. Then we expect support facilities, which is occasionally unavailable. Presently in my center in Lagos University Teaching Hospital, these are the panels, the immunopanels that we are able to do presently, and is usually on request, except for breast, that we ensure that all breast cancers, we do ERPR HER2 on them. Then this is a table. I joined the hospital in 2010. I've been with the University College Hospital since 2000. I now moved to Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Lagos in 2010, and this is the table of the requests we've had since then. As you can see, from 2010, 2011, 2012, it's been increasing. So I know that for sure with a lot of encouragement, support, and all that, we'll be able to accommodate more than this. And these are the ERPR HER2, ERPR estrogen receptor staining that was done. And this is the progesterone and HER2 that we stained. And our reagents, getting reagents too is part of the challenges that we face over there. We purchase from importers, and it's just one importer, and of course, the challenge of monopoly. It is whatever he says, the price, the time, and all that. We don't have any choice. Then we have administrative bottlenecks. Even if you want to do on your own, you can't just say you want to import. You still have to go through the management. So we have budgetary restraints, multiple competing interests, then centralized approvals. So these are some of the challenges. Then our control blocks. Initially, we source commercially, which is very expensive and limited availability. But now we are able to get some of our own blocks from positive samples. We try to use them, though the time constraints, though it's cheaper, but sustainable as well. Then the potential areas of intervention that I think with your support, everybody ensuring that immunohistochemistry has come to stay in my country. We can have establishment of immunohistochemistry centers of excellence via collaboratory relationships, develop specialized, smaller immunohistochemistry reference labs. Then the training, we have a standardized, adoptable undergraduate training, then postgraduate training as well, in-country training, short international courses, formal immunohistochemistry faculty development, as with the MSc or PhD research fellowships as well. Then immunohistochemistry advocacy, collaborative, governmental, NGO, like NSH can come in and ensure that immunohistochemistry has come to stay. Now, with this, I think what I just want everybody here to do is that I know so many of you would have passed this stage, but this is where we are presently. But we are ensuring that no matter the challenges, no matter the trouble, no matter the obstacles, we just want to add something to histopathology and immunohistochemistry in my country. So wherever stage you are now, just tell yourself that you must add one good thing to histopathology practice before you leave. Thank you.
I want to know where you get your dice from, Monopoly. David Davis, I like that name, has been the histopathology lab manager at the University of Colorado for the past 22 years. He's trained at the AFIP under the tutelage of Leone many years ago. In fact, he's won the Leone Scholarship Award twice and has put that money to good use, as he'll hopefully tell you. He likes to travel a lot. He's been to 40 different countries. He's got a ton of images, music. It's astounding what he's accomplished and accumulated in the number of years and the number of trips that he's made. He's really dedicated to what he does, and he likes to talk about it too. So I think we'll enjoy him. David?
Hello, you working? Hello, not sure it's working, is it? Anyway, we'll ad lib, that's what I'm used to anyway. So, anyway, I appreciate the NSH doing this, first off. It's really great that they're able to do this. I don't know, I had trouble when I put it on the first time, guys. I don't know, you probably can't hear me way back there, maybe the front people. Actually, I need to learn more. Okay, hello. Hello, there it is. Okay. I can't yell as loud as my daughter. She's a soprano. She sings opera, so I'm sorry. I need this. But anyway, I want to thank NSH for doing this. It's 10 years ago, probably would have never been done. And I'm glad they're stepping up and recognizing international countries and people. There's a lot of these people we can pull into our society, and I think maybe even make a couple more regions. Who knows? And kind of to kick it off, our future president was in Costa Rica with us. We appreciated that. We had a congress this last summer. We had 100 people from all the way from Santiago, Chile, and we had a speaker come down from Canada, so pretty much the whole hemisphere, which was great. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to take this off. It's not working. I'm not a Messiah, sorry. Makes it easier. No, I'm not. I do things kind of ad lib. You know, you've been used to structure here. I'm not a structured person, never have been. But I get things accomplished, so we'll get there. This is where I'm from, University of Colorado. First off, I want to say, to greet you in Swahili. That's a little different than what Glenda did, is Jumbo, Habari, Jina Langu ni Daudi. Now, probably didn't pick up anybody up on that one, but Buenos dias, mi nombre es David, de Colorado, trabajo en la Universidad de allá. Picked up a few more people maybe from Arizona and California anyway, maybe Texas. So, but and there's other, whenever you go to a country, whether it's China, saying ni hao, South Korea, annyeonghaseyo, to Saudi Arabia, you say so bahir, or shalom alaikum, or something. You want to pick up some of the words from those countries. You make the people feel more comfortable with you, because you're coming in as a North American, and they're a little intimidated by you anyway, especially if you're with more than one person. It's intimidating to them. We're supposedly the specialist. We're specialists in our labs. In their labs, we're not always specialists, because they're dealing with different problems, different chemicals. When I was in Cambodia, I had to deal with saffron. I didn't have much knowledge about H in saffron. We do H&Es, which was rather interesting. So anyway, again, for the reason for introducing that way, learn some of the local customs before you go, and some of the local languages. Oops. I don't know whether you can tell which one's me. Probably can. Anyway, I try to dress up like the Maasai. These are Maasai actually from Kenya, the Masai Mara, and also from the Tanzania out in the Serengeti area. I worked at a little hospital there, it's Haidam Hospital. It's outside of Arusha, where Glenda had been. It's about a day's journey through the back country. It's not easy getting there. Today we'll briefly, and you can see I jump around a little bit, sorry. Again, I'm not structured. Today, my talk I want to do in kind of 3 parts. First, I want to show you what issues that you can run into in some of these developing countries. I don't like to use third world countries. I don't even know what a third world country is. It's developing countries to me. But in the second part, I want to show what some of the personal and safety issues you can get into that you need to be aware of. You need to go into these places with your eyes open, but go. It's worth it, trust us. But still, you need to be aware of the problems that you can get into. And lastly, I'd like to show you one little technique that I thought was rather unique when I was in Cambodia a couple years ago. Here's some of the places I don't know if your geography is probably better than mine, but I've been to Antigua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, over here, India. I was in Shanghai and Beijing. Here's Madagascar. I've been there a couple times, to Tanzania. This is Kenya, just to give you some references of some parts of the world. First thing you have to do is get an invitation. You just don't show up on their doorstep. Some way you make contacts, and when anybody ever comes to the University of Colorado, I make sure I meet them, regardless where they're from. I sort of go out of the way, so I do meet them, so see what their needs are and see if I maybe can go help them someday. Financing is a real issue. Hopefully you can win a scholarship or 2. I've never been, a couple times I've won the Leone scholarship, which was real helpful, and last year another scholarship from the National here to help with the Costa Rican, but normally it's twisting arms, getting to know the CEOs and do what you can. It's not always easy, but these are things you need to know up front. Develop a proposal with your host, see what their needs are, and see how maybe you could work it out before you get there. And a lot of times you get there, it's going to be a little different, but you need to be a good Boy Scout or something. Be ready to change if you have to. These, again, you can, there's a handout. I don't know whether, I think there was a handout. There was supposed to be, and if not, you can get it at the front desk. I've got more than what I'm going to show here, but some things you need to be aware of and try to accomplish before you even get there, and afterwards too. And when you do return home, you want to make sure that you do keep them, just don't leave them hanging. Give them some feedback and also help them with any questions they might have. Knowledge before going, you need to know about your visas. Sometimes it takes 2 and 3 months. I know in Nigeria it could take up to 45 days to get a visa. And so you got to plan ahead a little bit. India took me 30 days to get a visa, and I got my visa the day before I left on my airplane. I was a little excited toward the end. Know the currency, know what your expenses are going to be as far as exit and entrance. There's costs sometimes getting in, there's costs sometimes leaving. The visa is a cost. Some places you can get the visa at the border, not always. So you need to be aware of all these things. And you need to know what your risks are, your health risks. Check with the CDC, check with your local doctor, PCP, or whoever, and find out whether you need to take some maybe malaria pills. In Africa, I'd recommend that. Central and South America, I never do. But I lived there and traveled down there for 10 years, so the risk isn't as high as it is in Africa, let's put it that way. Make sure you go during the right time of year. If you go during the wet season, you're going to have trouble getting around. Plus, you have a higher possibility of maybe picking up malaria. About half the people I know in Madagascar and Tanzania out in the jungle or the Serengeti area, about half of them had one time in their life they'd had malaria. In fact, the head of the lab when I was in Haydn, which is outside of Arusha, on the rim of the Rift Valley rim. He was in the hospital and I didn't even work with him because he was in there with malaria while I was there. And it's not a good thing to have, guys, really. And I'm not trying to scare you about going, but you need to be aware, period. Like I say, toward the bottom, educate yourself. And like I say, learn a few words. Now, who's the oddity? Normally in some of these countries, this little boy on the right, as the next picture, I'm not sure he's ever seen somebody in my color. And this was a trip, got to tell you about this trip. This is a trip we took back from this is in Madagascar. We went from Antananarivo, the capital, over to one of the coast cities because we were getting samples from them and they weren't arriving very good. So we had to figure out, they were coming on bus by whoever came to the capital, and some of them were arriving empty, some of them unfixed, and I got some pictures a little bit later, I'll show you on that. But anyway, we had about a 1,000-mile trip back and forth, and we had 8 flat tires, and I got a picture of that too. But we stopped that's why we stopped in this little village. It's not a tourist town. We had to fix a flat tire. So I was waiting for that to be fixed, and this little boy here, he eating a mango. I like pictures like this. Now here's what you can run into, and I'm going to show you a number of pictures of what you can run into. My ceremonial stick, by the way. This gets you excited about going. I kind of put something on you. Anyway, this is what you can run into here. You're going to get stuff in all kinds of containers. Here's a box. These are specimens. They use what they can. They have to. They don't have consistencies. They don't have containers like we go to Fisher or someplace or some company and buy containers. Some of this is medication, and maybe they bought it at the store and drank something, so they have a container. They put the specimen in there. And a lot of times they come with little or maybe no fixation, maybe not a lot of different from our labs, I don't know. I get those sometimes this way too. The ratio is not quite there, I don't think. And I walked in one day, this is in Madagascar, walked in one Monday, and this had sat there all weekend. I guess we could re-soak in formalin and maybe salvage it, but not perfect. A little dried out. Here's where their hood, actually they had a hood here, which is great. The Nigerian laboratory looks great compared to some of them that I've been in, and you're pretty good. The advancement's good there. A lot of the ones I've been in, these people, they have maybe 5 or 6 specimens a day. Takes them 2 days to get an H&E out, but that's better than, like I said, I jump around a little bit. But in Haydn, they don't have a histology lab. That's why I'm setting one up. I carried a microtome over there, and I've got some equipment going over there. In fact, I just got into customs in Dar es Salaam here last week, and so in February, March, I'm going to be going back over there to set them up with histology. Right now, an H&E takes them 3 months because they have to send it from Haydn by bus into Arusha, from Arusha into Dar es Salaam or Kilimanjaro Hospital in Mushi, which is a little ways away, but it takes about 2.5, 3 months. That's not acceptable. That's why these people need our help, maybe to set up. I want to set the lab up in Haydn so they don't have pathologists. I understand that. They understand that. But everybody in the world has computers anymore. We can digitize. We can send it off to Norway or United States or someplace where a pathologist and get some kind of reading on it. It's better than what they have. So that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to make it mimic what we have here. We're trying to just give them something to work with and give some diagnosis, give some help to their people. A lot of them don't have it. A lot of the people come in, it's past tense. That's not good. Nobody in the world deserves that. Another thing, if you take things, kind of throw my notes out, going by the pictures. They're, if you take things over, make sure you take something that they can repair. The one in the lower right-hand corner, it's not a new one, but it's rotary valve. It's got some vacuum. They don't have parts to repair these things. Take them something, dip and dunk. You know, the one I sent to Tanzania is not this Tissue Tech. It's another brand, but it is just this simple dip and dunk. They can keep that working. There's a pathologist sent the one in on the right from Texas, actually, through ASCP. I thought he was he was you know, in the right mode. He trying to help these people, but don't send them a tractor without giving them gas or something. You know, that old concept just doesn't really help them a lot. Now, the embedder on the left, probably some of you have seen this before. It's fairly old. That was even after I started a few years back, and I hadn't worked with this one. Maybe some of you have, I don't know. But they only had 6 molds, so they had to reuse them. This is Tiena. This is in Madagascar, in Antananarivo. He's got, this old microtome was given to him from Europe, but a lot of times the things that are given to him, they've used them up, so that's why they gave them away. That had a gear that slipped in it. The black one here, the old AO, well, it doesn't have safety on it. Some of you have ever used that know that, but it was hard to crank. Another problem, taking over disposable blade holder, well, all they had was low profile, and this is a high profile holder. I was surprised how they got a section. I said, you guys are pretty darn good histologists. You can do, maybe I need to hire you. And I did send them over this. There's a hospital in Colorado. I've pretty well cleaned up Colorado. I'm looking for some other places to clean up, guys, but with equipment and things. But anyway, this one I sent over about a year ago. That's a good old workhorse. Not trying to be company specific here, but just because I got a little bit of everything. This is a problem you run into in a lot of countries, whether it's China, Cambodia, wherever. This is in Africa. They use their solutions as long as they can, and sometimes their H&Es just aren't top quality because of that. But it takes them, down in this part of Africa, it takes them 3 months to get reagents in from the United States or Europe. And another problem we had here is the absolute alcohol. It was pushing 97% if it was lucky at all. The only reason I knew that is because I carry a hydrometer with me because I'm ready for some of these things. So they weren't completely dehydrating their tissue. Pathologists were having a little trouble reading them. A little cloudy. And the pathologists, they came in from the States to help them out. This is, again, in Madagascar. I had a single eyepiece here. He had a little hard time with that. Now, I want to go into safety. There's safety issues, too, going overseas. Ventilation. Now, what if you open the bottom windows? Do you think that might come right back in? It did, trust me. You kind of tried to keep it closed. But they're doing good. That's better in some places where you don't have any ventilation at all. Here, I just love this picture. How am I going to get to this fire extinguisher in the back there if I do have a problem? Also, what kind of fire extinguisher is it? And also, the key's on top right here. So I'm not sure it's charged anyway. So, but there again, I'm not trying to make fun of these people. This is what you're going to run into. Be aware. Be ready. Run into chemical problems. I don't think picric acid probably is quite as explosive as some people maybe contend, but it's not a safe thing to be around. You can see right here, it's dry. These are both picric acids. This actually was in Antigua. I think the technicians like me because I got the lab closed down for 2 days and I got 2 days paid vacation out of it. So until, and the U.S. government sent some people in from Puerto Rico, the military, so it was good PR for them too. So it was kind of win-win on everybody's part. And I did meet the chief of the hospital, the fire chief for the country of Antigua, and also the minister of health. So I met some people I probably wouldn't have met otherwise. Never hurts to know people, trust me. Here's 2 or 3 countries here. These are problems you can run into. It's really hard to know what's in some of those containers. The bottom right is actually an H&E setup, if you didn't know that. I think I might be able to get an H&E out of that by guessing, but labeling they can use some help on labeling in a lot of countries. This is something probably is not a very good idea. I don't know whether that's carbofusion. It's something it probably doesn't want to suck in, but it's pretty common. They don't have bulbs to pull it up and things. They do what they can. This was in Greece. They're still smoking in the lab and eating, and I was enjoying it too. But anyway, and here, the embedder, if you didn't know, it's good. You can put your water bottle on that, and it kind of keeps it cold. So it's kind of handy. And getting rid of waste. I said, well, how do you get rid of your waste? And I said, one of the technicians said, well, I'm going to go get rid of it right now. And so, can I go? I wanted to go with him. So we went to the market, bought a load of firewood, went to the edge of town, dug a hole, started a fire, threw stuff in. Chemicals, tissue, whatever. So that's how they do it. At least they get rid of it, I guess, rather than just pile it someplace. This place needs a little help with archiving. Their archival system, I had to work with them on that a little bit. In fact, this is out front of one of the pathology department. You can see on the ground, well, they don't have an archival system, period. Pretty much. This is what I found coming in. I just was a little amazed because this is just last week's work. So I guess, like I said, I'm not trying to make fun of these people. Just want you guys to go in. If you do go, but be aware. Here's an issue that you can run into. I did not take this picture. The gentleman in the center he was from Puerto Rico. Yeah. No, he's from the Philippines. He sent me this picture later, and I did not speak, this is in Saudi Arabia. You know the customs. I did not speak to the females. I did not take their picture. I didn't want to get thrown in jail. So they're really, Saudi Arabia is really as far as the Muslim world goes, they follow the Quran really close. They have religious police in the street, so you can understand that. You just kind of stay. I informed them I was going to take pictures before I took them, so the ladies could get out of the room if I wanted to take pictures of the equipment or something. We went to 7 or 8 hospitals in Riyadh. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, I guess. Personal problems that you can run into. How we doing? You okay on time? You okay on time? Yeah. Okay. Personal problems you can run into as far as your health, eating, drinking, transportation, and security in your hotel. Just little tricks to keep you out of trouble. If you're in a malaria part of the world, you sleep under a mosquito net. It's not always comfortable. It's hot. If you don't have a fan, no air conditioning, that's 9 times out of 10, that's where I'm staying. You don't want to touch the side of the mosquito net either, because the mosquito will come right in, and you got a good chance of maybe picking something up if you're not careful. Take anti-malaria pills. You're best if you go there. Water's an issue. In the capital of Madagascar, Antananarivo, both these pictures are from there. They have local watering holes, you might say, around town. They're spaced. A lot of cholera problems there, a lot of dysentery, and the doctor's pretty sure it comes from these type of things. If you're over there and you want to drink, around the world anymore, you've got bottled water. Or if you're someplace where you're not sure about it, make sure you boil it. The little apartment I stayed in for 6 weeks in Antananarivo, I made sure I boiled all my water, and then I I had a refrigerator, so then I put it in the refrigerator for drinking later. But you got to be prepared. Got to prepare yourself. But know these things, and little things like brushing your teeth out of the faucet. You don't do that, because you might as well be drinking the water. It's the same thing. So I mean, and salads and things that have been washed in water. Don't eat those things. I know it's not too histology oriented, but some of these things you got to be aware of. This is where your meat comes from. Probably cut outside, hanging, drying. It's still good. Just make sure you cook it well. There's some of the restaurants that you can maybe, or places you can get food. This is Cambodia. That's Madagascar. This is Tanzania down here. Going through the countryside, that trip I was telling you where I had 8 flat tires, we were going through the countryside, and this was off to the side of the road. I got to go back and take this picture. This guy had killed this boar with a spear. I thought that was kind of a cool picture anyway. Things you find in restaurants and things, and I like these. I like snakes, so I had to throw those in there. But the top right is India. I found this in a corner of one of the restaurants I was eating in on the left. And down below, a little story behind that. We were walking through the jungle in Madagascar. There was a snake alongside the path, and I was with a guy from South Africa, and he said, "Pick it up." I said, "Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wasn't born yesterday. You pick it up." So anyway, he picked it up. I said, "Okay, now I'll handle it." Anyway, optional low-budget meals. I didn't eat any of this stuff. Silkworms, cockroaches, tarantula. This is in Asia. These are things that you set on the bus next to somebody, you're going to see it. Be ready for, if you got a weak stomach, you may think about not going some of these places. Security. If you look real close, this is my door completely shut, but there's a gap there. If somebody wants to come in, they're coming in. So I always carry little eye hooks or screws and my own locks. This is up here is where the room is open during the day. When it closes, there's no screen on that. That's why I have a mosquito net over here. But little security things that can help you, and maybe things you take you don't want to lose, because it's hard getting replacements for some of it. You can't. And so you want to take care of your, this is, I think this cost me $2 a night, this hotel. But that's fairly typical in some of the backcountry places. This was in one of the hotels. So you know they got some problems here, probably, if they got postings like this. I'm probably scaring everybody to go now, aren't I? And this is the tire this is one of my better tires that we had on here. I'm changing a tire. This is one of our better tires. And this is some of the transportation you can get into. This is in the dry season. So you can imagine what it's in the wet season. Yeah, ready? Okay. And this is here, this is how we started the car. We didn't have a key. And also the road, you got to make sure the planks are lined up to your tires, otherwise you've got a problem. And walking isn't always safe either. You know, here, this is Madagascar. They didn't hurt any of us, but we had to get them off the bridge before we could cross it. I'm running a little late here, I guess. So I'm going to real fast. This is, you can see him sectioning, putting albumin on a slide, putting the tissue on top of the albumin, stretching it out with the force, with the blades, drying it on a hot plate, blotting it first and wiping it, drying it on a hot plate, finish drying in a microwave, and then staining with saffron. And it's not as dramatic. This picture, it doesn't show really, there's a lot more difference than it shows. Go do it, guys. Every trip has been worthwhile. I've been in 15 different countries doing things all the way, completely around the world. Greece here, upper left Greece, Saudi Arabia, Haidam, Tanzania, the Taj Mahal in Agra in India, Kenya, and some of the bush people in the Serengeti area. Just these people need our help. Thank you. One of my pathologists always says it's Miller's time. Actually, I like rum and Coke. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, David. It's very good. We're going to open up the mics for questions, but before, I'm going to ask a couple of questions in general. I'm a little concerned, and I can probably sit down. Are all the mics going to be on? Okay. So watch what you say.
Okay. Mine on? Mine's, yeah.
How do you get the time off? And this is in general for you guys. How do you get the time off, and what kind of support do you get from your employer to do these extensive travels?
Well, I've been very fortunate in that my university has supported me. One of the goals of our university is to extend our reach. And so they have seen my opportunities to travel as part of the way to extend the outreach of the university, although I don't travel as part of the university. They have allowed me time off without having to take vacation. I have been very, very fortunate. And the way my curriculum is set up, my students are out in clinic sites half of each semester, and so that's when I go on these trips, is when my students are not in-house that I have to teach. And I've had to turn down some trips because I couldn't get off, but it's been a real benefit to me to be where I am for these opportunities.
It's been a little more difficult for me at the university. They've given me some support, but I've been gone quite a few different years for the last 12 years, different times, but it's not always easy. But after 22 years, I do have my vacations up there to quite a few weeks a year, I guess. But that's a real issue sometimes.
So you do have to use your vacation time?
Yeah, I have to use my vacation time, so I'm not been quite as lucky as Glenda, but still worthwhile. But I think this is what I've done for 12 years. That's been my vacation too, and you can work it in.
Another one about regulatory, and you can pipe in on this one while. What kind of regulatory agencies exist in these countries, if any? Are there?
There are some. The World Health Organization, WHO, and the CDC are working to do accreditation for the laboratories. And there is also an initiative, its acronym is SLMTA. I'm not exactly sure what the letters mean, but it is for upgrading the laboratory quality across Africa. And there is an African organization that's working with the different countries to get this instituted. It's a slow process. We saw some of the pictures that David had about the quality of the laboratory work. The unavailability of reagents and supplies is a really big issue. Simply not having pathologists in a whole country it is a real issue. Backlog is a problem. So there is an initiative working on accreditation and standardization, but it's a long way from being continent-wide for sure. And I'm only speaking of Africa. I don't know about the other areas.
Well,
we have WHO too existing in my country, but most of the time their attention is not on histopathology or the laboratories. Their major attention is on malaria and HIV/AIDS campaign. So the histopathology lab is majorly being sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Health and the teaching hospitals doing it themselves.
My experience is that in South America, they have an organization that's trying to control some of that. And our meeting in Costa Rica, actually, in Central America, similar type things. But in India, every country seems to be kind of controlling their own thing. But more and more, CAP is getting involved. I had a meeting with the president of CAP here a month ago, And they're reaching out. They're going places like Japan and China and also to India and certifying labs. So I think they're trying to pull in the world just like maybe we are a little bit.
I can see that, yeah. And does anyone have any questions that you want to step up to the microphone with, please? Got a couple. I know, Skip Brown.
I was just curious. It's really fantastic work that you all are doing, and more importantly, it's a great service that you all are providing. I was curious as to how do you find these opportunities in different countries, and how do you network with other people in certain countries? Just having a desire to go do this, how do you find out about the people that need this and opportunities?
Well, I think there's a lot of need out there, and it's really hard to get those people, Skip. And my first experience was through CAP. The pathologists overseas invited me to go to Madagascar because they were sending pathologists without quality H&Es, and they were saying, well, we need to improve the laboratory work. And I kind of thought to myself, duh, come on, people. You know, in order to get something to the scope, you got to work on it. But every time I meet somebody, I've been talking to this young lady here. While at the meeting, you don't push yourself on people, but you get to know them, and you'd be surprised what can develop from just doing that.
Yeah, and there are people in NSH that you're unaware of. We were talking about this, that, I mean, how many people know that David was doing this, or even Glenda or Andy? There's people, and I'm going to say a little bit about this later on, but there's probably more people than you know that are doing this, and it would be nice to know them, to organize this under the auspices of NSH and get some direction and maybe some funding. Beth Shepard. But anyway, there was another gentleman with a question.
Well, thank you very much for the good work you're doing in...
Where are you from?
I'm from Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay.
I'm actually a breast surgeon. I'm not a histotechnologist.
Oh.
But I happen to have the panelist as my better half. So, well, it's quite important for all of us moving forward to know that in most of these places, the services available are actually stratified. Like in Nigeria, Dave was trying to compare her laboratory with other laboratories he has had to visit in other parts of Africa. I must tell you that for her laboratory, it's actually at a tertiary institution. It's a teaching hospital. And it's actually a hospital that was established in the former capital of the country. So it's actually at the pinnacle of healthcare. And when you now want to compare that laboratory with his laboratory in Colorado, then you're going to start having some issues with that. That's one. Then secondly, I don't think it's enough to say, people should come around and come and look at these people, talk to them, give them training. Yes, it's okay, but it may make more progress if these people can also come around to see what you do in your labs. They may then see it and be able to be able to adapt what they see in your places to what they have in their own centers. Then sometimes it baffles me when people talk about poverty in most of resource-constrained countries, because you'll actually find out that the latest cars are also riding the same roads that Dave cannot ride. You find a Bugatti in some of these places. You sometimes find a BMW 7 Series. You may find a Cadillac limousine there. Do you understand? So I think rather than thinking of resource constraints, we should think about resource misapplication. And there may be a need, apart from giving technical support, there must also be the political will to make the leaders of most of these places responsible for whatever is happening in their institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there is a vehicle for people from outside the United States to vie for the Luna Scholarship as well as people in the United States. And I agree that it would be beneficial, highly beneficial, for instance, if your wife were to visit labs in the United States and bring some of that knowledge back. There are still drawbacks. I mean, my next question has to do with how you get supplies. You mentioned the monopoly and where things come from. I'm curious to know where they come from, the equipment. You know, David gets some things donated, but is there a stream coming from anywhere that you are able to work with?
No, it's not as if it comes from anywhere. What usually happens is that, let me take immunohistochemistry as an example now. The local suppliers, they could not afford the financial implication to acquire the antibodies for supplies. So what usually happens is there's only one person that has that financial standing to be able to import and give to us. But be that as it may, quality is the most important thing. So whatever you're bringing in, the histotechs will be the one to actually verify, look at it. Oh, is it of good quality? Will it work for us? If it's not going to work for us, then we reject it. But I was trying to say there was that if we have different suppliers, then the cost, it's just that you just come and tell us, ER, for example, is 200,000 naira. We don't have any choice because we don't have other suppliers coming in to give us quotation to say, oh, I can give you ER for maybe about a 50,000 naira, and it's still the same quality without quality not being compromised. So because of that, we have to wait until that supplier has the antibody to give us. And even with that, the establishment also, you can see I talked about administrative bottlenecks. A supplier supplies you reagents worth about 4 million naira, and you're unable to pay the supplier for like 6 months. How do you expect the supplier to continue? Will not be able to continue. So with that, that means for another 6 months, we don't have our reagents. Then immunohistochemistry will stop until we have another one. The person get paid. When the person get paid, then you can say, oh, I want to give you another one. But the moment we have it, different suppliers coming in, get your money on time, you get the reagents to us, then these things can work. So.
Ken, I had some experience with that in Rwanda. When I was there for a month, I had the opportunity to visit a laboratory, the only working histology laboratory in 2010 in the whole country of Rwanda. At that point, some of their supplies had been back ordered or not delivered for 8, 10, 12 months. One of the issues is there are many layers, at least in Rwanda. I can't speak for anything else. I was explaining that there were many layers that it has to go through different governmental offices and ministries. And even if you order supplies, it doesn't get finally ordered for maybe a month or two. The exchange rate of the money has changed between Rwanda and the European supplier. And so now they haven't encumbered enough money for that order. And so it doesn't get ordered. It can't get filled because the money is not there. And so it's like you're chasing your own tail sometimes, where you can't do the work because you don't have the reagents, but you can't get the reagents either, and it's very frustrating. So the backlogs were tremendous in some of the cases, 2 and 3 years before since the tissues were arrived in the laboratory until they're actually diagnosed. And part of that is supplies. Part of it is that there's not enough pathologists to read it. Part of it is there's just nobody who knows how to work the microtome. There's lots of layers, but the reagent and supplies issue is a concern, and it's not just a matter of, oh, we'll give them some money and they can order it. It still has to go through this bureaucracy, and you may only have one supplier, so you're using up your money faster than you could.
And I think that's more the norm than the abnormal. In Tanzania, Kenya, Madagascar, same situation. So I want to follow up a little bit on what her husband was talking about. We're trying to get some people to come over, but I think the concept that maybe the ASCP and myself and some others have, we go there, we can hit more people, but also we can teach them how to use their materials, because they don't always have what we have, and they don't have access to those type of materials. So we need to, if we go there, we can see what they have, maybe do some modifications and develop them with what they can have and their equipment and things. So there's both ways are good. I mean, you need both. So.
I really want to commend you on your developing your IHC lab and all your struggles that you have. But my question is, you know, if you get your supplies and you get your immuno or ERPR and HER2 done, and you get your results for the patient, what is the care for the patient? If you're struggling to get your IHC reagents, is there funding and money for those patients now that you've got a result to get the Herceptin or get the tamoxifen drugs that once you've made your diagnosis?
Well, talking on that, when we get the immuno results ready, then the oncology unit, the surgeon, takes over the treatment. Well, he will be able to talk more because in the surgery unit, he will be able to talk. He handles the patient most of the time.
Well, that's also a challenge for us, I must tell you. Now, in a country where the per capita income, the GDP is about 1,000, 1,002, max 2,000. Like she said, most of the payments for health services is out of pocket. We don't have health insurance. There was a time I went to Germany, and I was quite scandalized at how they were, according to me, in quote, wasting material. And I come to my clinic, I have a young lady, she's HER2 positive. Before the IHC result comes out, I had started her on chemotherapy. She had missed 2 courses because she couldn't afford it. Now, she says, oh, doctor, the result you told me you're waiting for is here. And I say, oh, let me see. And it comes out at HER2 positive. The cost differential between Herceptin and chemotherapy. For chemotherapy, she could do chemotherapy for something like $500, some for $400. But for Herceptin, she would need a minimum of $10,000. That's in my country. Now, she has missed 2 courses, or she has missed 2 appointments because she couldn't afford $400 for her care. And then I now tell her, oh, well, this disease is treatable when you start Herceptin. We're not talking of things like lapatinib and things like that. No. We can't even be talking about such things. And she just burst into tears. But the way we are getting around it is that, one, we have some people who come around, start some non-governmental organizations some have taken over the care of 1 or 2 patients. I know of 2 patients who are currently on Herceptin, who are being cared for by a non-governmental organization. But I must tell you that the way to go is health insurance for us. And it has to be health insurance that's going to cover everything, especially the care of cancer patients. If you don't have that, and until we can get there, it's unlikely we are going to. But the thing is that if we don't document that there are patients with HER2 positive breast cancer with us, then we can start asking the government to take over their care. But if we can document and say, oh, well, in the last 1 year, I've had 500 patients who are HER2 positive, only 10 of them got care because they couldn't afford it, then we think the consciences of the politicians will get pricked, and then we'll be able to make a better case rather than say, oh, there's no immunohistochemistry because most of these patients may not be able to afford it. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
I would like to just add one thing. The ASCP PEPFAR monies were originally, that initiative was funded for AIDS and HIV and AIDS. When it was refunded under the Obama administration, it was funded at a higher amount than originally had been funded initially. And it also now includes not only HIV/AIDS, but also malaria, tuberculosis, and cervical cancer. So it has been expanded. In the beginning, it was simply for HIV/AIDS, but that's not the only issue that is rampant in the world that we can do some assistance with. So I just wanted to mention that it's not simply HIV/AIDS now, although it has done a tremendous, tremendous job on that.
It's not going to be solved today, that's for sure.
I just want to add something. Yeah, what I just want to say is that all what has been discussed today, we shouldn't just let it end here. We've been challenged, and we have challenged you as well. We want each and everybody present here today give the message out. This is what is happening elsewhere. It does not mean that your own center, this is what you have, and that is how it has to be. Because I am looking forward to a unique, universally accepted histology practice in the near future. And each and every one of us should be able to say, I have contributed to histology practice, healthcare service delivery worldwide. Thank you.
David, do you have a last comment that you'd like to make? Or?
Yeah, 2014, 20th of June, we're having a meeting in Costa Rica. Come.
That's what I was yelling last year. But I do want to thank the panelists for putting in their time and effort in making this a successful presentation. I think that this is probably the beginning of things to start internationally. I think Costa Rica was one of the first, if not the first, publicly announced international type meeting, and I predict that this is going to grow bigger and bigger. And as it does, I think it will help other countries as well, because there'll be more visiting, there'll be organizations, there'll be more things actively happening that people will see and take part in to improve. I believe that. And again, I hope that you all had a good morning, and don't change that dial.